You're listening to Traumedy, the podcast that helps you transmute your trauma with comedy. I'm Nancy Norton. I'm a comedian. I'm a registered nurse. I'm studying therapeutic humor, and I'm a keynote speaker. I love going around sharing the power of humor with whoever will have me. And I have a lot of conferences coming up for healthcare events, and the Central California Women's Conference is coming up with Brooke Shields. Just thought I'd drop that in there. I'm pretty excited about my path these days, but most importantly, I want to be of service. It's something at this age that is more important than anything to me, that I make a difference in the world. And I hope that this podcast is helping you. It's helping me. And I guess that's making a difference in my family because I feel better. Do let me know if there's anything you want covered on Traumedy, or if you want to come on Traumedy. My guest this week is a listener of Traumedy, and I'm so honored, you guys. I have a guest this week that's like, wow, so experienced, an amazing speaker. She's a hypnotherapist. I learned so much on this episode, and I am so excited to share it with you. And I'm not only going to have her as a guest, but I am going to hire her as a hypnotherapist to help me clear some blocks that I've been dealing with my whole life. Welcome. Okay, I'm going to do it again. Welcome to... I can do this. Welcome to Traumedy. My guest this week is known as a world leader in helping transform difficult problems through hypnotherapy, meditation, and mindfulness. So this is an exciting opportunity. Phoning in from Hawaii, welcome Wendi Friesen.
Hey! Woo. They're cheering all over the beaches in Hawaii here.
Oh yeah, let me hit my applause button. Where is it? Yes.
It has been such a weird and strange journey. I think that's the name of an album, a Grateful Dead album. It has been such a trip to think that 30 years ago, I was closing down my tanning salon in California, and I was reading the classified ads in the newspaper, which, like, what's a newspaper?
Yeah, kids, back in our day, we printed stuff on trees.
And it said there was a little tiny classified ad said hypnotherapy school, and that was all it said, and I had no idea what that was. So I called them, and she says, well, it starts tomorrow, and you can come for a couple days for free. And I did, and I stayed. It was 6 months long. It was 4 days a week, like a lot of hours, and it was amazing. I had no idea what guided me to do that or got me to be into that profession. But as you probably saw from my bio and information, oh my God, I don't know how it happened, but I got flown all over the world to be on TV shows, be with clients who were like really big, important people, and just on and on. I guess I was guided to do that, and I'm really fortunate and super grateful for what I experienced.
I'm grateful that you did it too, because just my brief experience with hypnotherapy personally, it was transformative in my life. And then that ripples out to everyone around me and my world. So I can't imagine. That's a huge impact to have on the world. So I would guess that was a calling that you had. I mean, obviously it was, because the path, when it opens like that, we've all experienced, not all, but many of us have experienced that feeling of when we're on our life calling, how the doors just open, and then lead to another thing. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it was, but it was so scary because when I was really new at it, I was getting calls from different media, like, radio stations or whatever, to do interviews. And I was terrified because they thought that I was that person, but I wasn't yet. I guess I put on a good front on the website. My 12-year-old nephew had to make me a web page because you couldn't make your own web pages then. You had to know how to code. And so because of that, I got a lot of attention. And oh my gosh, the first opportunity I got was to be in Sacramento on a radio station that was huge, and the morning show. So I had to show up at like 7 a.m. And he said, yeah, come on in, we'll do this. I said, well, don't we have to rehearse or something first? No, it's not how it works. And I went in there and he had me on there for 3 hours live and taking callers and everything. And I think I was just hooked after that.
Because you were able to trust that there was a wisdom you could access. I don't know. I'm fascinated by hypnotherapy and the interface between the conscious and the subconscious. And from what I've read, the little I've read, just know I have dyslexia and ADHD. So I'm an oral learner mostly. But when it's interesting to me, I can focus. And mostly what I read or what I have read in the last 30 years are mostly self-help books. One of them was The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton.
Oh, Bruce. Yeah. Awesome.
I love that you say Bruce.
Yeah. I know Bruce. Yeah. I've hung out with him.
What? That's amazing.
Yeah. We were at a conference together, speakers. Yeah.
That is so cool to hear about the people that you're rubbing shoulders with. That says so much. Yes. And one of the messages in there, it's so cool, Wendi. And one of the messages, and thank you I'm so honored that you're on my podcast. But what I want to say about the subconscious, what I understand, and you can help me understand it better, but the way he put it was it's infinitely wiser than there's just infinitely more neurons, infinitely more connections in the subconscious mind than the conscious mind. And so if we can access our subconscious, and we cannot think our way out of subconscious beliefs. That's where hypnotherapy comes in, right?
Correct. Yes, absolutely.
I love this. I want to work with you. After this podcast, I really want to set up some. Are you still doing sessions? Can I do some work with you? Hypnotherapy?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And what's been so amazing about it is when I started doing this, and all through the 30 years I've been doing this, there's things that I thought there's no way, that's impossible. I can't help that client with that. But my colleagues were like, oh yeah, there's nothing you can do to help that out. But I would go ahead and try. So one of my favorite clients is a woman named Martha, who was she was about 55 years old, and she had been catatonic for 6 or 8 months or so. And she was in her house with her 2 daughters, adult daughters, taking care of her. But she hadn't moved a muscle. She could blink her eyes, and that was all. And the doctors said, there's nothing we can do. There isn't any way to help her. So they had me come there once a week, and I just I took notes every week and called it Mondays with Martha. And I would talk to her as if she was listening and hearing me. And like I said, she couldn't move any part of her body. And I told her a story about this creek and this picnic blanket and this hillside and these little flowers and the 2 little girls that were there. And after I was done with that first session, they said, how did you know? And I said, know what? And she said, that's what we did when we were little. That's where we went with Mom. And I had described it perfectly.
I need a button. I need a button on here for goosebumps. Like I need to hit because I have goosebumps up and down. That's exciting. So keep going. I apologize for interrupting, but I get excited.
It was just that first session was so powerful, and they kept saying, how did you know that was the trail that we walked on? That was the creek. And all I was trying to do, I asked Martha to imagine putting her toes into that cold water in the little creek and feeling that sensation in her body and walking on this path and all the things, and making daisy chain flowers, and everything was 100%. And it changed my life because I was connecting with Martha in a way I didn't even know was possible. But the shorter version of it is I went there every week for about 3 months, and she was communicating. She was able to be sat up and put in a wheelchair, which she had never been able to do because her body was just stiff. It wouldn't bend. And they were able to take her places, and their life changed, and her life changed. And Martha and I were like mind meld.
Wow, that's beautiful.
It is. And then several months later, after I had not seen her for a while, the daughter called me and said she's in the hospital, and they said she's going to die, and she's not breathing on her own. And when they take the breathing tube out, she's going to die. But I got permission for you to go there. So I went to the hospital, and I was sitting by her bed and talking to her and saying, no matter what they told you, you know that you're going to live, you're going to be healthy, and you're going to breathe. And when they take that tube out, you're going to take the biggest deep breaths. And this man walks in who's either a nurse or something, and he's listening to me, and he says, she's going to die, She's going to die. I
Wow.
said, Martha, you and I know that's not true. He's an idiot. And I'm just talking into her ear a little bit, really quietly. So when they took the tube out, she took big, deep breaths. She recovered. She went home, still in a wheelchair, but quality of life. Oh my gosh. It was just an overwhelming experience about what we think is true as opposed to what is possible.
Yeah. And the power of belief, like
Hmm.
to the point of knowing, like that knowing. I
Yeah.
don't know what's your relationship with, or, how do you articulate the difference between a knowing and a belief, or is there a difference?
Well, I would say a belief is something that I absolutely have that I'm like 100% about, but a knowing is more of like what's possible. What can I do? What can I imagine or, experiment with that might work? Especially in my case, like so many people I've worked with that I think, oh God, this is going to be just a horrible experience. Like I had a client, oh man, who was a child molester and he wanted to stop doing that. Whew.
Yeah, well, and thank God he wanted to stop. But I
Yeah.
I have some firsthand, I hate to say it, experience. I mean, well, that's another subject. But yeah, so tell me more. It's very challenging to keep our compassion and heart and minds open around people that have
Yeah.
hurt children. At least for
Yeah.
me, I shouldn't speak for others. For
Oh,
me, it is.
absolutely. Yes. No, absolutely. For me as well. And I thought, he was in my office and we're doing kind of a little first session. And I thought, there's no way I want to get inside of his head or in his world or ask him questions. And I thought, wait a minute, if I can do really good work, he's going to stop molesting children.
Thank you. Yeah.
He wants to stop. So we did a lot of sessions together over probably 3 months or so. And he, at one point, he said, I was at a family gathering and there were a lot of kids around, and I wasn't sitting with any of them. I wasn't talking to any of them, and it was totally fine. I was totally free from that. There was no interest or desire or anything. He says it was just fine to be around them with nothing, yanking at me and stuff. Whew. So,
Well, and that's beautiful. One of my guests, Marla Mueller, she works, whole business is working with sex offenders.
oh
And
boy.
so that episode, we talk a lot about, the roots of it in there, and again, when we're in our higher compassionate self, we know nobody comes to this world wanting to hurt people. Like it is a way of them discharging their own powerlessness. Maybe they were abused. It's complicated. I'm not going to pretend. I'm not a therapist. Why do I even pretend like I know this stuff? But just from my own experience of when my thing I do, which is control other people with my codependency, trying to make myself safe. I just know that comes out of a twisted way of trying to make myself safe. It's very, very fucked up. And so I can have empathy for that, like you feel compelled to do something that somehow and they dissociate and I don't understand it all. But thank God that
Yeah.
there are people
Yeah.
that like you that are willing to help, because what else can you do? What are you gonna? I mean, we exile them. We want them to be held accountable, but really we want them to change. And
Right.
to do
Yeah.
that, you gotta work with them. But thank you for
But
doing that work.
if I was a licensed therapist of any kind, because hypnotherapy is not licensed or anything, um, if I was licensed, I would have to turn him in because he told me that he does that. I would have had to file a report or something. But luckily, as a hypnotherapist, I don't have to. And another one of my most challenging clients was a man in his he was about 30 years old and he wanted to kill his parents, and he hadn't told anybody that, but he lives at home with his parents. And we worked through that over many sessions, and I can just envision him right now and being right next to him. Sometimes I put my hand on a person's heart and just, let them know that that's what we're here for. And after a few sessions, he went home and he hugged his mother and father because he lived with his parents. And his mom called me and said, I have never, ever had a hug from Andy, and the love is there, and something changed, and he was no longer wanting to kill his parents. But about 3 months later, he called me and said, I was I'm in the bar. I just walked outside to call you, but I want to go back in and kill everybody. Oh my God, really? Oh no. Oh. So I
Oh,
talked to him. Oh God, I talked to him for like probably 30 minutes and got him to reset back to who he really is, what he loves, what's important to him, and get those core things back. And he indeed did not go in there and hurt anybody. But I was like, wow, wow, how on earth am I so honored to be the one to help him with this and help him to let go of all that, where otherwise someone would have to put him in, turn him in and have him locked up or something.
wow,
But
you're
yeah.
you're really opening my mind here, because one of the things I was talking with Marla about was, what is the resource or what's the recourse? I mean, if people know that they're going to get turned in like a child molester,
Yeah.
then they don't go seek help because the consequence is too great, the risk is too great. But now, gosh, I hope someone's hearing this, and I don't know if you're I mean, I don't want you to get flooded with like really challenging clients, but then again, if you're open to helping them, and then this is an amazing resource for people that have
It
things.
is.
So
Yeah.
thank
And
you for sharing that. I've never thought of it
yeah.
this way. I didn't know about it.
But to know that other people are living with these really deep fears and the stuff they can't talk to anybody else about, it's really sad that
Yeah.
they go to counseling, or, they're afraid to open up because then they're going to get reported, like you're saying.
Yeah.
And
And they need help.
hypnotherapy is a safer place, but hypnotherapy is not regulated. And so there's a lot of people that take a little online course for, whatever, a week, and they call themselves a hypnotherapist. And that's no good because there's a lot of not well trained hypnotherapists out there,
Well, that's good.
unfortunately.
So, how do you vet? How would I vet? I mean, I know you and I can see your vast experience, and I am going to work with you because I have some stuff I need to work on, that I have these beliefs that have been blocking me my whole life.
Hmm.
And my mother died this year, so I am freer on some level. I love my mother. I know she did her best, but the woman oppressed me and really held me back in life in some ways. I mean, she
Yep.
empowered me in some ways and held me back in others. I mean, that's classic. But
Yeah.
how do you vet? How do you vet a hypnotherapist?
That's really difficult. They can certainly pump up their resume, by whatever they have showing online and stuff. And you've just got to do like an introductory, hopefully a free little session with them to see if you feel like you trust them or you feel like they're knowledgeable. But most people don't know what to expect. So they don't know if they're getting the right kind of help. If you look at someone's history and they've been to a lot of conferences and they're a speaker and a trainer, then that kind of vets them. Like in my case, I've been speaking all over the world to audiences, and obviously I wouldn't get to that point if I wasn't really good at what I'm doing.
Right.
So
And
yeah,
and
yeah,
then, knowing somebody, it always is nice to go, okay, here's somebody that worked with her. Like, that's always a good one.
yeah,
Get a
that
good
helps a lot.
firsthand
Hmm.
referral. But because there are, so the other thing I wanted to go back to that we didn't quite finish, I wanted to know, what is your take on the fact that you intuited Martha's childhood memory? How do you feel
Hmm.
that? How do you feel you got that information?
Hmm. Wow. I wish I knew. I,
All you know is you got it.
I I did this with so many clients. I saw what they saw and I heard what they were hearing. We have the ability to share thoughts. It's not complicated, but when we're in a quiet environment and it's just us and them, we can share experiences. So I don't know. Well, I'm not saying we're all psychic, but we all have all the time the ability to share these thoughts. So you're with someone and you feel some fear, this new person that you just met, and you feel, I'm not comfortable. What's up with that? Why do I feel that way? Because you don't know any reason for feeling bad. But when I was doing a seminar in New York, and we did 3 days, and there was about 30 people or so. But on the last day, this might explain an answer to that. I had an experiment that I had never done before. And I said, everybody stand up in this circle. And in the middle of the circle were 2 chairs. And I had 2 people volunteer to sit in the chairs. And I was making this up as I went.
I love
But
it.
anyway, so I said, okay, the 2 in the middle, close your eyes, take a deep breath, relax. And I had a whiteboard. And so I had already told them what I write on the whiteboard is what I want all of you to experience in your own mind and your body. And then you're going to send it to the 2 ladies in the chairs, right? And so like the first one was like a roller coaster. And that's all I wrote. And then they did that. And then I said, okay, release that, take a deep breath. And then the next one was a dark alley, and release that, or let it go. The next one was, I think it was an orgasm or something, but anyway, so then I had them open their eyes, and I said to both of the ladies, I said, what did you experience on that first one? And when they were talking about the roller coaster, they said, I don't know. I was sitting down, but I could hear this really clack, 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 clack sound. And I felt like I was going up to somewhere. And the other one says, I was falling, and I don't know how I was falling. I was safe. It was kind of scary, but I was safe. And I was falling down, down, down really fast. I was like, oh my gosh, because I had never done this experiment. And so each thing that we did, their description of it was just right on. Even one of them was like lying on the warm sand on a beach. And one says, oh, I could hear birds, and there was a breeze, and I could hear the ocean. And the other one says, I felt warm sand underneath me. I was lying in warm sand. And they kept getting these things right. So we did about 20 or 30 of these that I wrote on the board. And the one that was the orgasm was kind of funny, because the first lady says, I can't tell you. I can't tell you what it was.
Not in polite society. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other one said it was very obviously an orgasm that they were transmitting to me. I just felt all the blood and sensation, everything rushing to, and not that they were having an orgasm, but just that they absolutely knew. And we did this then I had those 2 like stand up, and 2 other people sit down in the chairs. And we did this for a couple hours. It was amazing. So anyway, the answer is we are sharing thoughts with other people all the time. We just don't know it, or we don't give ourselves credit for it. So when I'm with a client, or you're with a really good friend of yours, we are sharing those thoughts, and we need to give ourselves credit for what we are experiencing that is on a deeper level of knowing, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I know. And I was just reading something last night where there's not the measure. We don't have the tools to measure all the quantum physics of all this. We don't, and that's why, like I talk about my neighbor who is a brilliant scientist, and we just have an impasse on the whole like spiritual thing, although he does want to do psilocybin mushrooms with me someday, and I'll be interested to talk with him after that. But the point is, whatever that is, whatever that exchange of information, my mother, who lived 800 miles away by car, probably a little closer as the crow flies, but she and I mean, I never felt like I had privacy from that woman. And I have boundary issues, like in terms of not holding them. So, but my mother, and still now she's passed, and I still feel her presence all the time, which now she's different though. Now she's, at least in my mind, whether I'm making it up, I don't care. I just love that she doesn't worry about me embarrassing her anymore, because she's transcended the judgment and worries and fears, which is part of the earth experience, right? It's the ego self. But back to sharing information. Yeah, they're down to some, weird details. Like I think I've said this once before on the podcast, but it doesn't hurt to repeat it. I was a busy single mom. You were a single mom too, weren't you?
Yeah.
Man, and I went through a horrible breakup when my son was 2, and not just like a typical like I went through a divorce with my ex-husband, and we're still friends. But this person, now, the safe house told me I was a sociopath. And anyway, she was on a mission to annihilate me. And it was hard to be a single mom while somebody's trying to take everything, leave me with nothing. But I managed, thanks to humor, and we'll get back to that. But my point is, I was just overwhelmed. And every day I'd load the dishwasher, and that gross crease at the crack of the dishwasher, the hinge, I was like, I should wipe that. That is disgusting. And I would think that thought every day. And I would go, tomorrow, throw all the stuff in the dishwasher fast as you can. Let's get out the door. And my mother, I don't know why this is what she fixated on to share with me through her psychic ability, but that's what she let me know. Like, Nancy, it takes 15 seconds to wipe that with a paper towel, that crease in your dishwasher, out of nowhere. And I'm like, oh, and she was right. And I grabbed a paper towel, dipped it in a little bit of water, gone. And I'm like, why is she communicating of all the things she could share with me? But that was my mom. My mom was very much about the germs, man. She was
But
a nurse.
That was a life lesson, is that the things that you're resisting and that you're judging yourself on every time you open that dishwasher, you're thinking, somehow deeper in you, like,
I'm a bad person.
A slob. I'm so dirty.
I'm
a
bad person. I think the core belief. Oh God, I'm interrupting you, and you're the expert.
No, it's okay. But the lesson is, it took me 15 seconds to release that belief about myself, and I'm not a slob, and I don't have a dirty dishwasher, and my mom would be happy that I wiped it clean, and then you're done with that. But I learned that in my life of being a slob early on. I just didn't hang up my clothes. I didn't clean anything. And then I realized, you know what? If I spend 10 minutes cleaning up or making my bed or whatever it is, or hanging up my clothes, I will know I'm a better person, and this is who I am, that I love having things neat and organized. And it took me a couple weeks to really get on it, but it was a different world, because everywhere I looked, nothing was triggering me to remind me that, oh, you're just a slob, you can't hang up anything.
Well, I have some really strong thoughts about that, because one of the addictions, or that's not the right word, one of the patterns that my mother had a clutter issue, and I have a clutter issue. And then I had this housemate years ago that shared this bit of wisdom, which she was saying, hey, isn't it easier to look at the clutter and go, oh, isn't that terrible, this clutter, rather than look at your deeper issue? Like, it's a way of it's a way of mitigating your deep shame. And I was like, wow. And so at the core belief, and this is what I got through psychedelic therapy, was that I was full of self-hate and shame. And that basically my core belief is that I was a bad person. And my mother thought she was a bad person. And to manage that, she offloaded a lot of shame. Let's, wipe that thing so we don't have to feel like we're a bad person.
Right.
And so it's a weird way of control, but that doesn't change who I am. It is a nice reflection of, like, I care and love myself, which I'm still.
But it does change who you are. So
okay, tell me more about
go ahead.
that. Well, what I just want to say is, one of the things I saw on your website was about love yourself, and this is something I'm saying every time on stage. What I want for everyone, because I'm just now starting to love myself in my 60s. Is I didn't know how that felt. I never knew the feeling of self-love, because I'd exiled my sweetheart, part of me, the little baby I call sweetheart now, that she was exiled early in my infancy. Like, I got the identity that I'm a bad baby. There are no bad babies. I think my mother got that imprinted on her, and so on and so on. And it came out of a survival trait. That's a long story. But the point is, I just really want, from the inside out, and I know it doesn't necessarily change people to hear me say, I want you to love yourself, but I'm telling you, I love you no matter what you've done. And you are a good person. And the thing I got to tell my mother that at the end of her life, I said, Mom, you've made me feel like a bad person my whole life. And I'm not. And I go, I'm a good person. Everyone in our family's a good person. And you're a good person. And that felt transformative. And with that, I will pass to my guest.
That comes from her damage. When she was young, there wasn't anybody giving her self-help or any ideas about who she is or could become or anything. We didn't have parents who could teach us any of that. They were just doing what they had, done. And my parents grew up in some really horrible situations, and they were doing the best they could, but
That's
they
right.
didn't know anything about how to help us be better people.
That's right. 100%. I know that. I know she did her very best, and it's a survival skill. It helped her survive to be in control, wash her hands, keep things keep the microbiology safe, the things that she could control, and control the family. It's the codependency, the gift that keeps on giving, but it comes out of, I do it to my son. I have had to make amends. I make amends to him almost every day. So I still have the chance.
It's so interesting how we can change our outer world and it affects our inner world. And when you were talking about this and you said something about things being a mess or whatever, I flashed back to when my two children were young, and I was a single mom because my ex was an asshole, whatever. So I had piles of dishes in the sink so big that I couldn't deal with them, and the dishwasher was clean and I couldn't put it away because I didn't want to. Everything was a mess everywhere in the house. And so I just had started as a hypnotherapist, but I decided to imagine that my sink is all clean, perfectly polished, everything's put away. And when I walk in the door, oh my gosh, it looks really nice. There's no pressure. I didn't do anything bad. I'm not a bad person. And when I did that visually and emotionally and what it meant spiritually about me, from that day, and I remember this was 30 years ago, I just put dishes away happily. I picked things up off the floor. I kept things neat and tidy, just like that, just because it meant something about me. And if the listeners can understand what this means, that it means something about you. It's not that you're fighting to have to, quit being all, dirty or unkempt or whatever. It's what it means about you when you're doing the thing you do want. And that is transformative.
Well, to me, what I'm hearing, and I would love to work with you on this because my house and my mother did this and I do it. I have I'll get one area clean and then I'll shuffle piles to another room. But I have yet to experience every room organized and clean. It's always, there's one kind of place where it's an explosion of filing or whatever it is. Yeah, I would love to work with you on that, but I feel like what it's telling me is there's a part of me that I feel like there's a part of me punishing myself. Like there's a part of me that doesn't love myself. And I'm like, this is all you deserve, Nancy, or something. There's some part of my identity that is punishing another part of my, I'm doing a lot of internal family systems work. So there's a lot of parts of me that one part of me. Yeah. So I would love to work on that with you. That's one thing.
Yeah. And I've done that with a lot of people. I have a recorded program called Clutter Freedom, and it goes through many different sessions of what it means about you and what it means when you're no longer that person with all this clutter and confusion and you can't find anything, and how you feel about yourself as a result of, being just a tidier person, and finding out that it doesn't take all this extra time to do that. It's just, it's just a little thing here and there, and how valuable it is and how worth it is. So for me, I felt like, if this takes me 5 minutes, it is so worth those 5 minutes to feel better about who I am. Oh my gosh.
Beautiful.
And I was obsessed because I make my bed still to this day. I make my bed every day, even though nobody's going to see it, unfortunately.
Oh, me too. I have the same made bed that is just, but for us, it's enough for us, right?
Yeah. So it was a life changer to this day. And that was a long time ago. And it wasn't like I grew up in a messy household or anything. Everything was pretty nice where I grew up. And it was just my own, my own issues, my own shit that just.
Well, I think there's a lot of people say, there's a lot of roots in in some sort of trauma. I don't know. But speaking of trauma and traumedy, I'm going back to I had to laugh. Okay, so I was laughing at myself, right? I was late for the, and I looked back at our messages and I realized I did not communicate clearly about which weekend. I said the weekend, not this weekend. I said, how about the weekend? And so you're going, the weekend, sure, the next one. And I'm saying, in my mind, this one. But then there's something in me that has, again, maybe that little control of my own shame, like, oh, I'm running 10 minutes late. And I was running around here trying to find the little chip that you record on this Rodecaster with, because I just ordered some from the internets and I couldn't find it because of my clutter, Wendy. It was on my dining room table under some papers, but I was running around going, where is that chip? And then I need my fizzy vitamin drink. And then I was grabbing stuff and I was plugging in cords. And I knocked over my fizzy vitamin drink. Right now I'm talking to you with sticky feet on my shoes. Anyway, I'm just saying this is the perfect timing. But for me, laughing at it is better than going, "You're a bad person, Nancy." It's like, no, just at least find, in the meantime, until I get organized, at least treat myself with lightness, with laughter. It's kind of funny, It is kind of funny the way and then I have the strabismus. I have the one eye, so I'm often knocking drinks over. So, and they're anyway. So I'll stop there. But tell me about how at times in your life that humor and or if you feel like it. I mean, is there a time where humor has helped you through rough times, and also what's your take on that with the subconscious and humor? If you have a take, no pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's an interesting one because I grew up in a very funny household. My father was very funny. And like I said, he was a preacher, which doesn't lend itself to comedy, but he was a funny man. So all of us kids grew up to be funny. And two of my brothers were very, very funny. One of them became a comedian, was on stage, and just great examples of how to go from being an oppressed religious household to being funny and having fun and being free to do that. And I guess I didn't really get to feel that until I accidentally found out I was funny. But I hadn't been on stage. I wasn't a speaker. I had been doing hypnotherapy for probably 6 months or so. Because of this web page that my 12-year-old nephew made.
I love that.
I know. I had a TV show in New York that called me and wanted to fly me there from California to be on this TV show. And so I wanted to back out. I told them yes. And from California, it's a really long flight and all the logistics and everything. And I wanted to back out really bad because I thought, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I've never done, anything on stage or with oh my God, TV. It was a national show. It was a Queen Latifah show when she had a talk show.
Oh,
and
wow.
I tried to talk myself out of it. Oh my God, I was so scared. And I just slapped myself on the forehead, by the way.
Just now? On purpose?
Yeah, just now. Because that's how it feels to me. And so I had to remind myself that, okay, it's just a talk show, right? She'll be sitting at a desk. I'll be sitting in a chair beside her, right? Because that's how it works.
Yeah, that's talk show.
I'll answer questions. So I'm backstage. Oh my God, there was this was the hugest audience. Usually talk shows have a very small audience and they make it look big. There were 400 people. But anyway, so I'm backstage. They're hooking the microphones up. And I said, well, what are we going to talk about? Isn't there someone who's going to tell me what we're supposed to talk about? And he said, no, you've got this. You've done this a million times.
Oh.
So I go out on stage. And, for everyone listening, this is about how you're going to transform your fears in 3 seconds. I went out there and I realized, oh my gosh, there's 6 cameramen sending me signals with their fingers. I have no idea what the fuck they're doing. And Queen Latifah is up in the very top row of the audience of 400 people.
What? Way in the back of the...
Yes. She's not on stage. There's no desk and no chair. So I'm out there all by myself. And they had asked me if I wanted to bring some volunteers to the stage beforehand. So they put 4 chairs on the stage, but that was all there was. And I closed my eyes while they were getting ready and they're doing whatever their hand signals are.
Wow. And it's such an intense thing. The little bit of television I've done, it's so much focus and intensity and, when they down to that wire and action, and okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
So you're in that intense moment.
Yeah. So I closed my eyes. Well, they assumed that they said, oh, you've done this plenty of times. So I was out there, I closed my eyes. I put both of my hands together. And I said to myself, it's funny, like just describing this, my heart's beating a lot faster.
Yeah, you're back there.
I said, you've done this hundreds of times. It's so easy. The audience will love you. And that's like the stuff I was saying to myself. I said, you know exactly what to do. Whew. Having hot flashes now. So anyway, I had to be in charge. And I told myself, you've done this hundreds of times. And she introduces me and stuff, and she's showing my book or whatever, and then she throws it over to me, and I'm like, okay, here goes. And I just stepped into that role of a person who's done this hundreds of times. Of course, I'm not shy, and I'm not someone who would shrink away from an opportunity. But while I was doing that, and I was in a totally different headspace than usual, I was being funny. The audience was laughing. And when I told them little stories that were quite amusing, and I brought some volunteers on stage and they sat in the chairs and we hypnotized them and did silly things with them, but with no preparation to do any of that, the audience was laughing. And the video's still on YouTube, even after 30 years.
That's amazing. And I mean, the idea that all of a sudden you had to just assume that role and you played your part, but you must have, whatever you did with your self-hypnosis. This is my theory about humor, and maybe not just mine. I've read so many articles. I don't know what's mine and what's, I can't cite an article on this, but that I believe humor is an interface to the subconscious, kind of like meditation can be, and dream, like twilight dream state. So maybe when you did that hypnosis and you got into your subconscious and all that wisdom, and who knows, I believe in muses. You might have channeled some muses. That's really cool. Yeah. So you just, all of a sudden, I'm on and I'm an improv artist now.
Yeah. And I was on that stage for like 45 minutes without any preparation or any experience. And I was like, whoa, oh my God, I'm still having flashbacks right now.
There's a part of you that was that was terrified. One part of you was terrified. Absolutely. Another part of you stepped forward and said, I got you. Right?
Yeah. And I stepped into it. Yeah. And so I did what a person would do who is in that very experienced mental state. Now, if I hadn't done that to myself, I would have existed in the frightened state of like, oh my God, they don't even know that I'm nobody. This was just a lucky stroke for me. So anyway, it went really, really well. And the audience was laughing their heads off because apparently I have a sense of humor.
Turns out.
Who knew?
It's hard right now. I can just feel your sense of humor and your presence. It's hard for me to imagine you not having access to that for all those years. But for whatever reason, maybe your belief was, oh, the boys are funny, the girls aren't. Because that is something in our patriarchy. Yeah. The boys are funny, girls aren't. Even me, like, I'm the first woman to win the Boston Comedy Festival, which I bring up on every podcast. But the point of it is, though, that why is that? That's weird. Where we are in our culture, however, we still have not had a female president. There's a lot of patriarchal beliefs out there. And I don't know if that was part of it, but I love that whatever it was, you cracked through it. You broke through it. You broke through that.
So true what you're saying. So there were 5 kids in my family, 3 boys who got all the advantages and opportunities. And in my dad's business, that they were the ones that mattered. And then the 2 girls that we had to just kind of, slog away and whatever.
You're the handmaidens. I mean, that's something that's up right now. I'm doing a lot of keynotes at conferences for healthcare workers, and I'm getting ready right now. I've been prepping for OR managers, and these are highly educated, most of them female. The ones I've talked to are all female, but they're highly educated nurses, professionals, and some of the doctors still treat them like handmaidens, like not a colleague. Yes. They're colleagues that probably no more than that, doctor, because they assist on every kind of surgery. That guy's probably specializing in a handful, and they assist on all of them and could probably do all of the surgeries themselves. And it just, I don't know. There is a little part of my, patriarchal rage still underneath there. However, I believe in reincarnation, and I know I was a man in one of my most recent past lives, so I contributed to the patriarchy. I own it.
Yeah. But then having that in your history and understanding that maybe you were a man in a previous life, but now you understand that you can have both of those energies of the female and the male and call on that male energy. And maybe for me, that's what I did that broke me out of that state of like, I'm not good enough. I can't do this. Who do they think I am being on stage? Whatever. I brought myself into a totally different energy. And maybe it is from, all the upbringing and things that were confident man. And then I went on and I spoke at a lot of conferences, and people would laugh their freaking heads off because I was engaging, and turns out I'm funny. I'm an accidental comedian.
I love it, Wendi. And I think and I've been doing stand-up for 30 years, and I always say I'm on a slow rise to mediocrity, and that is in reality, I'm very proud of the skills that I've built, but I have noticed the variables, like I've gathered thousands of data points subconsciously. And what I see is it's not necessarily the material, it's the presence. When I bring my presence and I connect with hearts and minds, it's weird. I can sometimes just stand there and make a funny motion and people can laugh because we are sharing an experience. And I think I'm guessing what you do. I don't know, but I'm guessing you're really present when you're doing you're not doing a canned, vulnerable. Thank you. You're not doing a canned presentation.
Yeah. You got to be so willing to share your shit with people and go ahead and make it funny if you can, but sharing those vulnerable things in front of a big audience, so no matter what it is empowering for them, but it's also healing for us, especially as women, and what you say about the, growing up in a patriarchal household. Oh my gosh. For me to get to be on these stages all over the place and, oh God, I've been flown all over the world to work with people who, one of them is a ruling member of the royal family in Qatar. Apparently,
wow.
He thought this was in the days when the only way to make a web page was the AOL thing, and it was my nephew who made me a page. And I get an email from someone that doesn't really have their name, but it says, I want to hypnotize women for sex. Money is no object.
What?
And I was like, okay, I'm going to just delete that. And I didn't. And I thought, I'm curious. And this is the other really good skill in your life, is being curious.
Yes.
I wonder what would happen if I reply to this email. This is just some dickhead, sending me an email about sex.
Literally, so if his dick could actually type, which if his basically that
money
visual,
is no object.
Money is no object.
Yeah. So I sent him an email back, said, what is it that you'd actually like to do, or, whatever. And I'm thinking this is just going to turn into a bunch of porn or something. And he was very respectful and answered my emails. We emailed back and forth many times. And he said, I live in Qatar, but he didn't tell me the rest of the story. And he said, we can meet in Amsterdam. And I was like, oh, Amsterdam, that's like, sex capital of the world.
Let's go.
So I was extra suspicious, but I was brave, just like on stage my first time. In this case, I thought, I'm going to be brave and I'm going to go as far as I feel comfortable going with this. And so we kept conversing, and he bought me airline tickets, whatever. And I went to Amsterdam and checked into this beautiful hotel. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Also, Wendi, I have a funny idea. I've never done this on my podcast before, but I was thinking, what if we do a cliffhanger? and and continue to talk, but it'll be part 2. Tune in for part 2 next week. What happens? I really think we should, because I feel like we're just getting started, and I knew it was going to go so fast. But I've never done a part 2, but I think this is worthy of a part 2.
Oh, yes.
I am so curious to hear what happens. Oh my gosh. Because I know you said there's a part of you that was hesitating because it was the sex capital of the world, but I went to Amsterdam 1998 and ran in the gay games and had the best sex of my life in Amsterdam because my partner and I went to a live sex show and got so turned on that we had to work it out all night long. And I was like, I have never had sex that was that flowing for a whole night. Like, we didn't go to we were supposed to go to the museum. We were staying right by the Reich Museum. Is that the way you can say it?
Reich.
Reich Museum. But I chose to have hot sex instead of going to see this beautiful artwork. But we had our priorities. Anyway,
excellent choice.
Tune in this Tuesday, Traumedy, every Tuesday, a new episode. We are coming back with Wendi Friesen. I get to hear it right now, but you have to wait till next week. So this is amazing. I'm loving this. Oh, thanks, Wendi. Wow, that's part 1. That went so fast for me, and I knew I wanted to talk with Wendi for another hour. So I'm excited. Tune in this coming Tuesday. We'll have part 2 with Wendi Friesen. In the meantime, go look at her website. There's so many programs that she offers on there. It's Wendi, WENDI.com. Can you imagine just having your first name as your website? That's pretty cool. Wendi.com, WENDI. And I want to thank my son for this music. I want to thank the listeners. I'm so excited when a listener messages me and lets me know they have something that they think would be a contribution to the podcast. Thank you so much. Oh, in the meantime, I was going to tell you, when I'm going to work with Wendi. So by next Tuesday, I will have had at least a session of hypnotherapy to kind of help me bring out the best in myself as a keynote speaker. I struggle a little bit wearing the hat of the stand-up comedian, but then giving content. It's like, who am I to give content? Don't tell people, okay, I probably shouldn't say that because people aren't going to want to hire me. Who is she to tell content? I have a lot of content. I just need to let myself tell it. All right, tune in next week, Traumedy Tuesday. Here, part 2, what happens in Amsterdam. I'll tell you this, what happens in Amsterdam does not stay in Amsterdam.